Welcome to All Play, ladies and gentlemen. It's very interesting to me that I start every video for the past 2.5 years with Welcome to All Play. When you guys watch a video or when a video starts playing, I would like for every single video to capture what I think is entertainment when it comes to video games coming from me in representing Alt Play. But I haven't actually taken the opportunity to introduce my stance on gaming to you guys. And I feel like that's something that I should have done a long time ago. I might have very lightly touched on it. Like, what do I bring to the table when it comes to playing video games on YouTube? What sets me apart? I've kind of touched on that. But I haven't really gone into depth about my stance on gaming. So I would like to take the time to do that now. I've actually had a few weeks to sit and think about what my stance on gaming was, what gaming is to me, and how I help make the gaming world a better place. Basically, it boils down to three main topics. I prefer indie games over AAA titles. I prefer a simple rating system. And I hope to improve the community or interaction between players and people in the gaming world. And I'll go into those three subjects somewhat in depth as best as I feel I can explain. Let's say that. So up first, my preference of indie games over AAA titles. Listen, I'm old. I've grown up on Nintendo and Sega and Sony and the arcade and everything. I played everything from Super Mario to Sonic to Zelda to Mortal Kombat to Crazy Taxi. I played so many games over the past 20 years. Well, more than 20 years. I've been playing video games since before I could walk and talk, to be very honest. I always say that I have a picture of me with a pacifier in my mouth and a diaper around my ass. And I'm playing Super Mario Bros. 3 with absolutely no problem. I'm in fact doing better than people who've been playing video games for years could have done. I'll find that picture eventually. But my point is, after the 12th entry in a series, you want change and innovation. You get tired of playing Super Mario 1, Super Mario 2, Super Mario 3, World, 64. What was next? Sunshine, Galaxy, Galaxy 2. New Super Mario Brothers, the entire series is more or less the same game with different level editor levels, more or less. Hate to put it that way. You get tired of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic, what came after that? Adventure. You get tired of playing the same game over and over. You want change and innovation. I believe it was 2014 that I saw my first indie games first impression video. I remember two people that I was keeping up with in the gaming world, because I had just gone through the transition of getting information about games from newspapers and magazines to actually watching videos of people playing the games firsthand. I got my first impressions video, or I saw my first impressions video of two guys playing Don't Starve for the PS4. This game was everything that I was asking for. Not the idea of survival and resource management and health management and things like that, but it was different gameplay, different graphics, and a different experience. Them playing this game was absolutely nothing like watching people play Super Mario Brothers. Absolutely nothing like watch someone kick ass in Mortal Kombat. I was intrigued by the game, to be very honest. I was dead set on finding out how I can play Don't Starve. I believe, actually, Don't Starve is most likely the first game I've ever bought on Steam. I had Portal 2 beforehand, but I believe Don't Starve is the first game I've ever bought on Steam. Later that year, I believe, I saw Crypt of the Necrodancer, played by another guy on the same channel, and I was sold. I had to keep going with this idea of indie games. You guys know how much I love Crypt of the Necrodancer. I played it pretty much at least 2 hours a day for a year, for that very first year of Crypt of the Necrodancer's existence. like I said, I had to keep going to find indie games, and that's kind of what I want alt play to focus on from here on out. Yes, I'll still play Super Mario, I'll still play Pokemon, I'll still play all those games sporadically. I don't want it to completely drift away from playing the titles that I love and that everyone loves. But I've always thought that alt play should focus more on indie games. In 2015, I started playing more indie games on the channel. I wanted to play more indie games than AAA games on alt play. But a lot of things happened, and that plan slowly drifted from what I wanted. I had to go with the flow a little bit. In 2016, I actually planned on playing nothing but indie titles. Again, things happen, schedules have to change, and last minute I have to come up with something. When these issues arise, I have to do what works. I have to roll with it. Now, in 2017, I plan to play predominantly indie games on the channel. There's a few major titles, a few AAA titles that I know I want to play when they'll come out. But for the time being, the plan is to play predominantly indie games on the channel. In fact, that whole idea is what sparked Games and Chill. If you look at Games and Chill, with the exception of, I believe it's Pac-Man Championship DX Plus, with the exception of that, Games and Chill has been nothing but indie games. Games made by smaller developers or people that just wanted to stick their hand in gaming for a little bit. Because I feel like, I don't want to say it's my duty, but it's the people's duty to help the gaming industry strive. And that's one of the ways I believe we can help it strive. Because again, if you're getting tired of playing Super Mario number 30, where you're still jumping over blocks and jumping on mushrooms and things like that, continuing to support it isn't going to help the industry create something different. What you're doing is spending your dollars to tell them, hey, I like this, make it again. Again, that's what got us 5 versions of New Super Mario Brothers that are more or less the same thing. But not to take a dump on AAA games. There are some great AAA games. It's just I feel the industry can use a few more games that are made by indie developers. Yeah, you never know what games can be created. You don't know what games can be created if we keep going to the same game over and over. So like I said, my second point is a simple rating system. Again, like I said with the indie games and AAA games, I grew up in the age where you didn't have the internet as the fastest way to get information across. There were 2 different ways to very quickly spread information. There's print, which is newspapers and magazines and flyers and things like that. Or you have telecommunications, TV and radio, for those of you not in the know. Your TV and radio, that was another quick way to spread information. Of course, all of these ways of spreading information were limited. Only certain people had access to make newspaper articles or to release newspapers in general. Only certain people were able to produce magazines or articles in magazines or get their word heard in magazines. Same thing with TV and radio. Only certain people had access to television stations and radio. Back then, video game reviewers used rating systems to evaluate a game. Now, this is where I'm going to get a little bit in-depth, and this is one of, like, if I were to make a philosophy for how I felt on games, this would be the crux of it. This would be it. When video game reviewers use a rating system to evaluate games, they used a very biased system. Something was X out of 5 stars, or it was on a scale of 1 to 10. And my view is number systems are flawed. Number systems like that are flawed. It's based on what the reviewer thinks. For example, people would often give a game 3.5 out of 5 stars. Well, my question is, what is half a star? How does a game earn half a star or lose half a star? How do you evaluate that? What determines if a game gets half a star in its review? Are you doing this based on category, or are you just willy-nilly picking, oh, I like this game, but not that much, let's give it half a star? If you're picking categories, if you're judging based on graphics, gameplay, sound, innovation, things like that. If you're picking categories, are all the categories equal? Can a game that has horrible music and sound effects, but great gameplay, is that game equal to the vice versa? Is that game equal to a game with horrible gameplay but great music and sound effects? Where does a bad game fall on the scale of 1 to 10? Now, this one is actually like what I don't get. This is what I don't get. Different companies have different standards when it comes to what is a bad game. And I'm not saying that being general. I actually did a little bit of research for this video, for this podcast. I'm not going to say the names of the companies I've looked at, but different companies have decided that a 3 is a bad game, a 4 is a bad game, and a 5 is a bad game. On average, companies would say that 4.5 or worse is a bad game. Now, here's where my true question comes in. If you're the company that said a 3 is a bad game, if you want to go ahead and say that Sonic 06 is a 3, it's a bad game, then what's the point of having a 0, a 1, or a 2? They become obsolete. The 1 or 2 doesn't really tell me anything. We've already said that 3 is a bad game. Anything lower than a 3 is a worse game. It's bad. But what's the point of those numbers? Those numbers are wasted. And the same thing can be said on the flip side. What is a good game? What is a game that you consider valuable to the point where you can spend your money? You would spend your $60 on it. Most companies, just like the 3, 4, and 5, would say a 7 or an 8 is an okay game. If a game gets an 8, it is okay for you to spend your $60 on, your hard-earned cash on it. Then what's a 9 and a 10 for? What is a 9 and a 10 for? You just said that 8 was okay. You said 8 was perfect for me to spend my money on. Why would we use a 9 and a 10? All right, guys, it's time for a little bit of a story, and this story actually has to do with the idea of a simple rating system. Let's go back to when Batman Arkham City came out. I believe it was Arkham City. For those of you who don't know, I'm not a fan of Batman, but I've always had the idea that I need to try and play different types of games. And Batman Arkham City, as well as the whole Arkham series, to that point was a different style of game. I hadn't played those style of games before. And my roommate had Batman Arkham Asylum. So I watched him play through, and I was like, oh, yo, this game looks pretty all right. It looks okay. The sequel's coming out. Maybe I should try it. Maybe I should give it a try. I'll buy it. We can both play it, and it's all cool. So I bought Batman Arkham City. After I had played through it and beat it, well, by the way, I didn't like it. It wasn't that I didn't like Batman. I just didn't like the gameplay. A friend asked me what I thought about Batman Arkham City, and I'm actually going to go ahead and give you more or less what my review was at the time being. It hasn't changed too much. I said the combat was boring and repetitive. Boring by the fact that you pretty much use 2 buttons to either attack or dodge an attack. And it was too easy to dodge the attack because the enemies would always have a symbol appear above their head. That symbol told you, oh, instead of pressing this button, I need to press that button. And then I can go back to mashing this button. In addition, the world is bland and gray, leading to a lot of confusion and easily getting lost. It's DC, so the universe is mostly shades of gray, maybe a few tints of blue, and predominantly black. But it was. I want to say the world was boring. It was just not. It was not able to familiarize myself with. I couldn't feel like I was in the world. Like when I play Grand Theft Auto, I very rarely look at the map. I can drive down the streets, see a few buildings that look familiar, and say, oh, my turn's coming up. If I need to go to the country, my turn is coming up. Now, I gave him my in-depth review on the game. And what he asked me after I stopped talking blew my mind. Not because it was rude or anything, but because I had just gone in-depth saying I didn't enjoy the game. saying that it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the $60 I spent on it. He asked me, word for word, he asked me, quote, so if you had to rate this game on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate it? I told him I couldn't give it a number. I just went in depth. Like, I explained in depth that I did not enjoy the game. I can't say this game was a 5 out of 10. Because then he'd ask me, what would make it a 4? What would make it a 6? How could it be worse? How could it be better? I can't do that. I can't do that. I've always been under the impression that what I think about this game, the meat of my review, if I were to write this in a magazine article, a gaming magazine, and tell you what I didn't like about it, the meat should always be better than the appetizer or the dessert. What I said about the game, how I felt about the game, should tell you whether or not I enjoyed it. The number at the end of the review should definitely not be how you determine whether or not I like the game. I've never been for rating games or rating anything for that matter by number. Because if you want to get in depth about it, if you want to give it a 4.5, what's stopping you from giving it a 4.49? And finally, my third stance on gaming is about the community and the interaction between players and people. I've always seen games as a medium that serves more than one purpose. Yeah, video games are entertaining. Yeah, video games are fun. But you will never know who you can meet just by playing a game. Not just video games, but board games, card games, tabletop games, things like that. You'll never know what kind of friends you can make with a simple game. My first year of doing things on Altplay, it was more or less me by myself. I saw a few other people who were making video game content, and I thought, I can do this. I think this would be pretty cool. I asked them a few questions, what kind of equipment should I need? What should I look out for when I'm making my first video? What kind of lessons have you learned making your videos? But more than that, there wasn't any communication between me and another party other than that. When it came to my second year, I was like, I need to connect with others. I need to find others who are interested in doing videos about video games. And that's when I entered a tournament after seeing a few posts about it on Reddit, I believe it was. After participating in the tournament, I made a few friends, both with people who participated as well as people who ran the tournament. And I'm still in the process of making a lot of friends through YouTube as well as on Reddit, Twitter, and things like that. I'm always down to communicate with other people. Games are a wonderful medium to meet new people and learn from one another. There's many types of games, more than just your platformer, RPG, shooter. There's single-player games where you can take turns passing the controller. There's co-op games where you both work together at the same time. There's competitive games where you both challenge each other. And then, of course, there's tournaments and leagues and things like that. For example, that was one of the main reasons I wanted to throw the social Hearthstone League. I mean, it's even in the name, social. It was all about meeting other players and connecting past the tournament. Of course, that didn't go as planned. It didn't go as smoothly as I wanted. But I learned a few things, and I'll be trying to launch the Social Hearthstone League once again. Now, those three are just my stance on gaming. You can have different opinions about any of those three, or you can have a whole different philosophy on games. It's fine. It's okay. Your stance is your stance. It's not wrong. It's just not the same. And that's okay. I plan on releasing more videos like this here on Altplay. I've been working on the podcast for a while, just haven't told anybody about it. I've got a few ideas, and if anyone is interested in adding their 2 cents to the conversation, feel free to do so in the comment section below. And I'll also be reaching out, as well as accepting reach outs to people who would love to participate in topics here on Altplay Radio. Play radio. Play radio. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe so that you can see more as soon as they come out. Thanks for watching.